Hit it. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Gooners podcast. Oh, Mikey, it's been too long.
It's been a long time. We are eight undefeated, I say, playing football the Arteta way. Guys, there's 4 teams in world, major, European, whatever, football that have not lost a game in 2020. Can we name them? Fergus, starting with you.
I can name the two in England, which is Liverpool and Arsenal.
We've also got PSG, and then I'll mention the 4th one in a few minutes. You can think about it in the meantime. But we have something that I truly enjoy on this podcast, and it is someone who is breaking something all up in here, guest-wise. Something just broke, Fergus, and do you have any idea what it is?
Sorry, I had lasagna.
It is a duck, which I've completely screwed up the video for here, but we have a duck breaking guest today, Fergus from Guns and Yellow Ribbons podcast, and a member of every single Arsenal related Facebook group in the history of Facebook. Fergus Keating, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Andy, for having me.
Absolutely.
This is what happens when I try to do 2 things at once. I'm just completely incapable of showing what should have been a duck completely broken on the ground. So anyway, Fergus. I mean, that's a man's name. None of this Andy or Mike or Hoggy kind of bullshit. But I can honestly say in my life, I've met a lot of people, like 20 at least, and none of them have been named Fergus until I met you. So what kind of give us the etymology of the name Fergus, because we don't get that over here in the States.
It's an Irish or a Celtic name, and it means vigorous man. Something I am not.
Beautiful. I know of there's a guy in the WWE, and cue roll eyes for Andy. His name is Fergal. I mean, what kind of a name is Fergal? I mean, Fergus, is that like a cheap knockoff on Fergus, or what is it?
Yeah, it is basically. That's there's a long story. No, I'm not. Yeah, it's the cheap version. It's like the Lidl or Aldi version of Fergus. Yeah,
I mean, fuck that.
Yeah.
We don't bring Ferguses on the podcast, just Fergals.
Get it right.
Yeah, you got it. So, Andy, it's been a while. We've done a live pod from Gooner Growl last week with Robbie and Troops while you weren't here. I had a great co-host.
Was that not with sign language? Was it because nobody could hear you?
Yeah, my co-host was called Terrible, Horrible Audio.
I think I texted you during it saying this is god awful. Not the content. It was just
everybody did. Yeah, I will eventually produce the transcript because the content wasn't that bad. Mm-mm. You'll have to trust me on that because the audio was awful. Long story. Sorry about that, but anyway, it's good to have you back. I'm very disappointed we haven't seen dolphin pictures yet, though. You chose dolphins and playing with them.
So, as I know, all of our listeners are just wondering where those dolphin photos are. We really went to take Oliver, and Oliver was not keen to interact with said dolphins. So it was kind of a bust.
No one wanted to see dolphin pictures of him, as cute as he is. They want to see this, but the Andy version of this. I mean, look at the hair that I still had.
So here's the thing: I have the pictures, but they still have the watermarks on them because I was like, I'm not going to pay $300 for photos of my son sitting on a ledge.
So you're using watermarks as an excuse for why we haven't seen pictures like this of you. Hold on.
Andy, a question. Did you eat the dolphin all in once or just in
That's a better question for Mike. And Mike, that wasn't swimming with dolphins. That was swimming with whales.
That was what?
That's swimming with whales, not dolphins.
Well, the dolphin said, why am I swimming with them?
The dolphin immediately died after.
Yes, let's all have a moment of silence for that dolphin. All right, so anyway, we scored a bunch of goals yesterday, but sorry, my son Jake scored like 8 world-class goals this weekend in 2 games. He scored Rabonas, bicycle kicks, partial bicycle kicks, Panenkas, back heels.
Yeah, what happened with the vote on that? What was the final say? Did friends?
We don't have to talk about that. It was athletic. I mean, I would have pulled 4 groins if I had tried to kick a ball like that.
I've seen you try and kick a ball before, and you pull groins just doing it regularly. But
even as they sailed past you into the net during our shootout.
No, Fergus, did you see that in the WhatsApp group when he sent it over?
No, I didn't.
He's learned to mute the chat.
What people want to understand, that WhatsApp group has got more information coming out than Sky News, CNN, and everything else. It's just like
99.7% horseshit information that's coming.
Yeah,
out.
Andy Nunn. Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally Gixxer. And then you've just got Hoggy who complains the whole time.
Well, mates, that's the fourth undefeated team in 2020. Is Jake's Winter League team, which is steamrolling bitches like 15-2 on a weekly basis. So let's talk about Arsenal and Newcastle. And by the way, fuck you, Arsenal. I put 25,000 quid on us getting 30 or 25 draws in the Premier League, and you've gone and fucked the whole thing up. So anyway.
So we go into the lineup. Yeah, there was a lot of butthurt people when the lineup came out with Ceballos starting over Lucas, and then you had Guendouzi who didn't even make the lineup, and we can probably get to that in a little bit. But I was excited when I saw it. I saw a tactical type of counter-attacking lineup with attacking players, and I think a lot of people were butthurt Lacazette got benched, and I think I made a comment to one of our groups, Mike, that to me it was, we've tried Lacazette, giving him the time. Now maybe this was the kick in the ass of, hey, you're not starting because you're not good enough, and we clearly saw that helped him a little bit, right? But
yeah,
a lot of people.
I've never seen the word butthurt on Twitter more than I have that day. I didn't realize that was like such a common phrase. But yeah, Twitter jackoffs didn't think that you were that excited based on you wresting control of the Twitter for our pod account.
I love trolling people from our. It's just so easy.
When will they learn? I used to hate Fergus when Andy would, because it was just kind of an unwritten agreement. We never really talked about it, but I just kind of took over the Twitter account, started tweeting out ridiculous, embarrassing stuff. And every once in a while, I'd jump on and we'd have like 9 to 15 responses to a tweet. And I'm like, what happened? And I look at it and there's a tweet that feels like it came from me, but it's a picture of, I hope we sign Pepe. And it'll be a picture of like Matthew Valbuena or something like that. Just some fucking troll shit. And so we posted this time or tweeted this time about how much of an idiot Arteta was for starting these guys. And we get people coming out of the woodworks that never respond to our stuff, who just don't get it. But
that's social media for you.
Yeah, but I literally listed almost the entire attacking. Like I even put Aubameyang in there because I'm like, who in their right mind wouldn't start this man? Any football manager in the world, he's probably the first person on the team sheet, and people still don't know it's a joke.
Yeah, no, there's no such thing as sarcasm or satire or anything like that on there. But yeah, we're about to see how Arteta shapes his 11s when we play twice a week. I mean, he hasn't really had to face that other than the crowded holiday fixture cluster, and he's not had to really rotate that much. But including Nketiah over Martinelli and Lacazette, Mustafi over a healthy Socrates, which, I mean, Socrates seems to be done as far as Premier League is concerned. And Ceballos starting with Guendouzi nowhere to be seen. I mean, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Fergus, when you saw the lineup, was it confusion or was it excitement for you?
No, my phone was really wet because it was pissing down with rain.
I saw that video.
Oh, man. It was so wet.
I thought your phone was like excited. I thought that's what you were saying.
No, to be honest, I didn't want to see Ozil in the lineup because I'm not overly keen on Ozil. I don't, and we talk about the WhatsApp chat and so on, and people criticizing Ozil. Ozil did have a really good game and a really good second half. Agreed, but Ozil is nowhere near the player he can be and has been in the past. So I didn't actually want him to play. I was hoping that Martinelli be on one wing, Pepe on the other, and Aubameyang through the centre. I didn't want Lacazette to start because I thought he could come on as an impact sub with 20-25 minutes left to go. I was a little bit surprised that we started Ceballos. But defensively wise in midfield, I was pretty okay with. I'm not a Xhaka fan after what he did to us in the stadium. And But in fairness, him and Mustafi have had really good games over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So, you can't criticize him for that. But to be honest, Newcastle were poor. The first half was dire. And it was freezing.
Yeah. Well, let's say fuck the first half and let's go to the second.
Andy doesn't normally wake up until the second half anyway because it's 2 hours earlier.
Point of note of the first half is that Saint Maximus. Maximin. God, he's a player and a half.
Yeah.
And once they moved him into the center, and we were unlucky that we weren't probably 1 or 2 down in that first half.
No, we got very, very lucky. And it was kind of one of those matches where I just thought, okay, here we go again. And it just seems like whatever the team talk at halftime was, woke the boys up, because I think we came out hot. Eddie with one off the crossbar. Pepe started making runs into the back line, so we were spreading the defenders. Ozil was being Ozil. And then the Aubameyang header, Fergus at 1-0, was it poor defending or just a great challenge to get that ball? Because I've seen us concede so many goals where we're second to that ball, and sometimes you can place it on like, hey, the striker was just great, but I was just thinking poor defending from Newcastle on that one.
The first 2 goals from Newcastle were poor defending. They just their concentration dropped a little. I think they gave everything in the first half, and they came out the second half a little bit cold. And we caught them cold. And Aubameyang got 1. Their heads dropped. We got another. You put a comment up there from Bulgarian Gooner. Ozil ran his socks off. Yes, he did run his socks off. I agree.
He's got shit socks though. That's what he doesn't run.
But it's not that he didn't run his socks off. It's the fact that he's got better socks, as you say. Like, he can be an awful lot better than he is, and we don't see it. We haven't seen it for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
3 or 4 years.
I mean, it's the same story as I said when I said Ozil being Ozil. It's like he kind of goes missing, and then he pops up with these unbelievable performances or moments, and you're thinking, well, can't you replicate that for 70% of the match? Mike, 2.5 minutes later, Pepe scores with that tap in, and again, as Fergus says, really easy goal. And it kind of felt like Arsenal from the half time break onwards kind of figured out Newcastle's, like, you played FIFA back in the day where you could just do the same 3 moves and you'd always result in a goal. We just kind of figured out, here's how we're going to work the ball into the box and put something on net. And credit to Arteta for that, because I'm assuming that's what him and his team brought into halftime to say, okay, well, here's what we're seeing. Just go in and replicate this. And we put 4 goals in the back of the net.
That's kind of what coaching is supposed to be about. And this is the first entry of many into this podcast of Bukayo fucking Saka. Ended 2 people's lives on that play.
Yeah.
The kid is unbelievable. We've been doing man of the match we haven't potted every week in the last couple months, but pretty much since in every pod we've done since we took a break after Thanksgiving time over here. He's been the man of the match, and I don't want to skip too far forward, and we will spend some time because we got a lot of user questions about him. Some of them overlap, so we'll address those later. But I mean, he's like a cross between Ashley Cole, Jordi Alba, Andre Santos, and Messi, all wrapped into one. Fergus, you have to agree. I mean, or I'm kicking you off the podcast.
I love the kid. I think the kid is great. The kid just that nutmeg of Lasari. I'm crap with names, by the way, but Lasarso or whatever his name was.
It doesn't matter because he passed away. and by the way, the takeaway from your recent comment is that you love kids, and not in the way that you should. So sorry. So someone said you're going to regret doing this podcast, and I think it's happening.
I'm not. I'm looking forward to when we do it the other way around.
Yeah, no, we're going to do that, and we're going to talk about Saka a little bit more later on. So we got a couple more goals to go.
Yeah, so the Ozil goal, obviously a keeper mistake, but it's not relatively the shot on goal. It's the 35 passes that lead to that. So it's the most in a build-up this season of a Premier League goal. So 35 passes, but what makes it even sweeter, Fergus, is that every 11 players on the pitch touched the ball before it went in. It was like watching the Arsenal of the 2000s. I mean, it was absolutely just class.
Cheers, Mike. You can put that comment back up again.
We'll just leave it up for the whole time. For people who can't see, who are listening on iTunes,
listen. You got to get a poll going on here. Am I that shit?
This is Ferguson first. No, it's not that you're shit. It's that you're never going to want to put up with this bullshit again.
And I'm going to put this one up here and keep it here because it includes a picture of Becca. And I just
thank you, Becca. Well, love the hat, by the way. 35 players touched, 35 touches. Every player on the team touched it. It's the most touched ball. That sounds really wrong considering what Mike just said a few minutes ago. It's the most touched ball.
Most of them were kids too.
Most touched ball goal in the league so far this year. So yes, Jesus Christ!
There's an award for that, and it's related to the Puskás award, but it's the most touched balls. It's like one of those situations where in youth football you've got your team winning 13-0, and the coach is like, "Let's not embarrass these guys anymore. No one can shoot until everyone on the team has touched it." And then, like, once that happens, you intentionally just dribble it right to the goaltender, and he fumbles it and lets it in anyway, and you feel awful because you weren't even trying to score. That's pretty much Özil's goal. But yeah,
I was chatting to a mate of mine about that particular goal, and it popped up. We were in the pub the other evening, and it popped up on Sky Sports on the TV. And I said, "Look at this, 35 touches." And he came along. I said, "It's the most touched goal, whatever." And he went, "Doesn't count." At the end,
because the 35th and final touch was the absolute worst one of the lot.
Well, the crazy thing about that is much like Leno, that keeper has basically saved Newcastle's ass this entire season. He's just been absolutely phenomenal for them. So for that to go in the way it did was just obviously shambolic, but you kind of felt for the guy because he won't make that mistake again this season.
Are any of our potential round of 16 Europa League opponents in Bulgaria? Because if so, that I have to add that to the list of places I'm not going to go if that's where we draw.
So the last goal sees Lacazette break his kind of barren run. Again, the goal poor by Newcastle, but it was the joy on the man's face that it went in. It was like he just scored his first ever professional goal. It was fucking
overrated. Totally overrated. Arsenal celebration. Totally overrated.
I know, what a fucking asshole that guy is, but
yeah,
you could just tell the celebration, both from Lacazette, but the team was just weight lifted, and you could tell that man has been carrying it from the way every player except for Leno went and jumped on that pile or congratulated him, which means that this team, which we probably couldn't say 3 months ago, are just so well connected and knitted, and they knew what it meant to the guy, and it's great to see him. And I feel like Roy Keane is up there with some of the other pundits of these days, where it's just like, hey, we're going to just say something just to get a ruse out of people.
I'd rather ask Ken
He's such a bitter, twisted fuckwit, isn't he?
He is.
He is. And anyone who knows how I consume Arsenal football knows that I pretty much just I don't watch. I'll just have beer during the game, and then when we score, I tune in and I watch the celebration. Is it going to be a knee slide? Is it going to be a dunk? I mean, that's pretty much for 30 years what I've been into the Arsenal for, the goal celebrations. And first of all, the goal he scored is probably the shittiest one he's ever scored. He actually whiffed on it. He was trying to go like across goal with his right foot, and it turned out to be like a Rabona off of his left foot accidentally. And I did a poll on Twitter asking if it was an accidental Rabona. As I expected, 21% said yes, 10% said no, and 69% said who the fuck cares, which is my answer. Because it doesn't matter.
My answer too.
It doesn't matter. It's fun celebration. Fuck you, Roy Keane. There was penetration, there were tears, there were hugs, Frenching, three-ways, and one thing, because we're probably not going to talk too much about him he had a solid game today, nothing like overly special about it, but a guy you want on your team, and I'll say this all of a sudden, just for the joy and the fun and the silliness that he brings, and you saw it in that dog pile where he probably did like a senton bomb on Lacazette line there. Shkodran Mustafi, he seems like he'd be really fun to have around, man.
Well, we've been around him, and he's been he always seems like he's in good spirits.
Clang.
The guy dances. He jerks off in the locker room by himself. when no one's looking. I mean, you need that on your team. You got a guy who humps referees whenever he can. I think that's underrated. I mean, even if he's not playing on the pitch, you need him.
I think he had a bad game personally. I think he had a bad game personally because he actually managed to stay on his feet for the whole 90 minutes.
You got to give the guy credit, though. Since Arteta's come in, that one slip up against Chelsea, which was a pretty big one, but he's actually been a fairly good defender this entire season. And there's been moments where you're like, why? They're just, as Fergus said, just going onto his just slide tackling for no apparent reason. But as Mike said, I echo that, Mike. He seems like he's the kind of guy that teammates love to be in a locker room with. And maybe that's part of the reason why he stuck around. But hell, if he's going to continue as Xhaka and some of these other players that were on the bubble, if they're going to continue to grow as players and improve under Arteta.
Is it redemption stories or is it reversion to the mean in a good way? Like, unlike Lacazette has started out strong, as Fredo mentioned once, and kind of reverted to the mean of struggling. Are these guys reverting to the mean and they're okay again, or are these guys really kind of?
I think they've got some organisation and structure about them. That's what it is. Like I was at Burnley away and I watched, and I criticised Leno was our poorest player at that game because he was so slow. But we won't go backwards on the game. But looking at the back four and the two in front, there was the structure of that six, the defensive six. You could see it. There was the back line of four. It just looked so much more structured, and they know what they're doing. Even Bellerin, a player who I have criticised, not
to AFTV levels, but no. Listen, they're wearing red and white. I'll support them, but Bellerin, for me, I think defensively is very poor, and he couldn't cross himself in church, is the phrase I always use. But he's really, really good at running up and down the wing. Since he got injured, he slowed down. He's coming back to his fitness again and getting his speed back. But he seems to know where to stay and where to and control his part of that right back corner a little bit more. So Arteta has started with the basics, the old George Graham basics, which is get your defence sorted, then we can go from there.
I was about to say, I think it's basics. I think that Arteta has essentially gone to these guys and said, I need you to do these four things. Handful of things.
Wanting to.
And I think Lacazette made a comment when they were either in Dubai on the way back. There was a lot of confusion amongst the players on what Unai was trying to make the team do. I think with Arteta, he's just saying, hey, here are the basics. This is all I need you to do. And that makes players better. Like Mustafi, we've seen him. That was that 20-game run last season. We were all saying, like, this guy is Premier League ready, and then all of a sudden it was like just shit started changing. And
that was like 3 seasons ago. You mean when he first came?
Yeah, no. When Unai's first season. So
when we did.
But even still, I think there's just simplistic, and we see a lot of weird results. But pointing back to what Fergus just said, there's some consistency in our play. You can see what we're trying to do from the back to the front and how we're working in unison. We never really saw Torreira and Xhaka. They were just always all over the place. Now we almost see them in unison move together. It's
give and go, isn't it?
Absolutely. If one player is forward, another drops back. Before, we used to get counterattacked and there'd be no one. There'd just be a massive hole. And so it's Andy, just basic. Yeah.
Andy, a question. Ceballos. Okay, I didn't think you could have Ceballos and Ozil on the same pitch. Really, I thought they shared more or less the same position. And Ceballos, you had Torreira Xhaka in the holding, and then you the number 8 was Ceballos. Was he the key that made the midfield tick that didn't tick in the Burnley game?
I think so, because I think that for me personally, I would say yes, because the way Newcastle have played all season has been very counter. And I think having Ceballos in there and being that kind of connection from defense to attack and kind of allowing those other two midfielders to work around him, for me, yeah, I would say he was. And I think a lot of people were saying, well, how can he be a defensive midfielder? I just think he was dropping back to start the play going forward. I don't think he was told, I need you to defend. Obviously, every player is going to drop back and defend at certain points, but not in a Torreira sense of let's sit in a 20-yard box and just basically cover, right?
If we don't keep him, because there's a chance of us not keeping him, could Guendouzi fulfill that role?
See, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? For me,
and we're going to talk about the Guendouzi situation.
For me, Guendouzi is just a little bit more raw in the fact that he likes to push forward a little too much, where I think Ceballos knows to take the ball to a certain point and then distribute, where Guendouzi sometimes is like, fuck it, I'm just going to go all the way.
Yeah, he's
and I do think
sometimes.
Yeah.
I think this predicted Ceballos revival tour, which everyone I think is kind of hoping will happen after this Sunday, threatens Guendouzi a lot more than it threatens Ozil, and that isn't necessarily what the thought process would have been a few weeks back. A couple things, if you are listening and not watching. First of all, you missed the Mustafi slideshow and the Dolphin slideshow. You really need to check.
And they were separate. They were
separate. They were separate. It was not Mustafi riding on a dolphin.
Please note that no animals were harmed or injured in the making of this.
We can't say that.
That's the prototypical disclaimer. But Andy and I have an obligation to the truth, and so I'm not sure we can actually say that.
Please don't show it to women or children.
Exactly. No. Unless I was about to say something about Becca that was not going to be appropriate.
It's going to go wrong, isn't it?
Matthew D'Souza and Bulgarian Gooner having a kind of a give and go on whether Xhaka is still likely to be gone this summer. I tend to agree with Bulgarian Gooner. Matthew says that Xhaka adamantly wanted out and that it's just kind of a temporary ceasefire until the summer. I think that Arteta and just the way things have gone, including with the fan base, have kind of changed that. I don't see Xhaka being shipped out this summer.
I don't see him being shipped out, and I don't want him shipped out. I think that he has been one of our best players since Arteta's come in. He knows his role. We've always said if he has a defensive midfielder behind him and he's not tasked with having to track back every play, he's a better center mid. What he did with the whole shirt thing was shitty, but I don't think he got the support of the management. I've said it forever, Mike. I thought he should have been rested. He made a lot of mistakes, and he should have been. I
don't think there's any question. We can disagree, and we do. About
right.
Unai should have of my viewpoint on it, but I don't think any of the three of us would say that that Unai and the management of his career at that time wasn't partially to blame for.
To be honest, if you're talking about that topic and talking about Xhaka getting support, his agent and his representatives didn't support him and advise him to come out and say, "I fucked up. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
No, and I think that just Mike's comment of me being a fanboy. And,
I was just putting it up.
Here's all that matters, right? Is what Xhaka does going forward in the future of him being at Arsenal. And if we continue to see these performances out of the man, then I welcome it because he has been a breath of fresh air, and I don't think he leaves this summer. I think that Arteta has sat down with a lot of these players. I think the first thing Arteta said was, I'm going to meet with each player individually, one-on-one, and figure out what the common root of the problem is at the club. And I think he's reassured all these players. And we look like a revived team since him. The results haven't been great, but how many have we lost since Arteta's been in Chelsea, right? So yeah. And that match was one of those where
I was running around outside the stadium trying to find my tickets.
Right. So that was a poor 12 minutes of football that we had towards the end of the match. So
I was in my seats by then, but so I can't really.
Let's go on to man of the match.
Yeah. And let's I mean, we could debate this for hours, but I want to make sure we get to the questions and some of the other topics. So just a straight up man of the match. Andy, who's your man of the match?
Probably, it's got to be Saka.
I love where you can really debate amongst a number of people for man of the match, and it's not just so obvious, or it's not just Leno by default. Fergus, I mean, are you there? I did a poll with 4 possible people. Obviously, Saka was one of them, but who's your man?
I had 2 written down, and
man of the match.
Man of the match. Well, I have Saka written down because that nutmeg, but I also thought Pepe, his performance was outstanding, and he had how many? 2 assists. He come to life quite well. He's growing into the game. Yes, he needs too much time on the ball to get it out from under his feet before he can make those runs, which is the problem why Bayern Munich didn't buy him and they bought Sonny instead. But I thought Pepe had a good game. And only to be different, I'm going for Pepe. But although I would say Saka.
Well, you're not too different from the poll results. I'm going to go with Saka, of course, for the 40th straight week. And as Teddy KGB said in Rounders, pay that man his money. He's got put a 300 million release clause on him. So the man of the match poll got nearly 25,000 votes. All right, it was 761, but actually it was really close. Ceballos got 12, and I think an argument could be made for him. Ozil got 12. I think we know where those votes came from. But for once, it's not completely outlandish. Saka 37% and Pepe 39%. And I mean, it's hard to argue against Pepe with a goal and 2 assists, a 10 of 10 rating on whoscored.com, which ultimately is
that proves though, Mike, more than anything. I know my shit.
Yes, you do. Or you're a man of the people. One of those two things. Can't be both.
Right.
Pepe, yeah. I mean, we haven't really talked too much about Pepe, but it was Pepe or Zaha this summer, and I just can't be more happy that we didn't just overextend and pay ridiculous amounts of money for Zaha. I mean, Pepe certainly hasn't earned his contract and his transfer fee yet, but I feel like he will. Zaha is a known entity in the Premier League. He's known to go down, to look for contact, to be Mr. Step Over and not have a tremendous amount of end product. And I'm really not an expert on him, but I don't think he can cross the ball or take a corner like Pepe. Pepe's crosses have really found their target in the last few weeks, and he seems to be able to do what Cazorla, bless him, and Ozil can't, which is take a fucking penalty or a corner kick.
I think for Pepe, the biggest thing is his integration into this league. In the French, like Fergus said, getting the ball off of his feet, he's just under pressure so much quicker than he is. And it's taking him time. And you can tell he's a special player. I mean, there's moments where he stepped up, like I think Europa League, where we need those free kicks. And then I just think there's moments. I think he is going to be a good player for us. I do think if the Crystal Palace played the game and allowed us to parachute payment, we would have had Zaha first. But you know what? It's great to see an Arsenal player doing well, and hopefully this is the start of him getting a good run of matches and finding his feet in a league that's very hard to become a good player in. I mean,
he's only been here for 6 months.
Yeah, you got to give him time.
Does it make a difference for him as to where he receives the ball? Like if he receives it a little bit further back and can run onto it a little bit of time?
He doesn't track back that. He doesn't go back that far, so he's always going to get the ball about.
Well, just as far as having a little bit more time to set his run, but again, that's me trying to talk tactics, and if
you look at players like Henry did it, where he could take the ball from deep and drive it forward, and not necessarily put a shot on goal, but at least start the drive. Like Willian does it all the time for Chelsea, where he will drop back wide, receive the ball, and then he pushes forward. I don't think that's Pepe's skill set. But as Fergus said, I don't think he'll ever drop that far back. What's going to be exciting is in 3, 4, 5 months from now.
I don't have that long.
when Bellerin is completely healthy, Pepe is finding his stride, and we have two quick players on that side who can work together. We're going to give Bellerin a Big Mac. Yeah, yeah. You know, but we just got to give the guy time.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got all the time in the world for him. I'm glad that he's
same with Lacasaka, right? Every striker goes on a little run where they
can we do it? Can we go off tangent a second, Mike? Sorry, yeah, because I knew you were going to give me a hard time. I'm going to give you a hard time. VAR is fucked up again.
Oh, yeah. You're watching the
Liverpool have conceded a goal. VAR is fucked up.
Yeah, obviously VAR in the Champions League is.
I think that where are they playing? Because I don't have it on yet.
I don't have it. They're losing to Atletico. It's in Spain because I saw a lot of bloody
very red
on Sky News.
That's today. The problem there is that it's in Spain, so the Spanish don't understand quite yet what VAR means to Liverpool.
Yes. So speaking of Lacazette, We have our friend and recent handsome guest Simon Collins from the Evening Standard spoke to Laka after the game yesterday, and I loved these comments. So I just wanted to read them out. I mean, he praised Arteta for his communication about dropping him from the starting lineup. Did everything to keep his confidence up. In other words, Lacazette buys in, and we know he can be moody. We know he can be a little discontent at times. We've seen it pretty much from the start, where he was getting pulled out of every game by Arsene Wenger in the 70th minute. But he said he demands a lot of things. I wouldn't say he's strict, but he knows what he wants. And when it's not good, he, as well as we do, know we're playing shit. He is a good coach. And then he went on and said, "Good evening."
Mike, my biggest holdup with Arteta was that I just didn't know how he would manage this part of the game.
I'm trying to walk it back now. You said "fuck Arteta" when he came.
I didn't say that like you told.
I didn't hate Iwobi as much as you spread the word about.
I will say that there hasn't been a press conference yet where I haven't been mesmerized by Arteta, and if that's what's transferring into his meetings with the players, they've just got to be mesmerized too. And credit where it's due, the guy is managing this ultimately what was a really shit environment and atmosphere, and I think he's just doing an absolute gem. Maybe it helps that, he can go into a training session and say, here's what I told Aguero to do, or here's what Kevin De Bruyne would do. And those names make the other players go, oh, if they were doing it, then I can do that too.
Those guys play for a top 6 team.
But I just credit because
he's not only managing the players, he's managing the fan base. Mm-hmm. He's managing the podcast. I'm managed out the fucking ass right now for this guy.
Well, the reason being,
and we haven't even really won a game since New Year's Day.
The reason being is we've got low expectations at the minute. We know where our benchmark is. Some of us are happy if we end up 10th and don't end up in the Europa League again. Yeah. Some of us are probably realistic in saying that we can't get top 4. Although with last night's result, that does come back into a bit of play again. But time is running out to get into the Champions League. And even if we do get into the Champions League, are we good enough to actually compete in the Champions League and end up dropping back into the Europa League again? So it's a vicious circle. Do we need to do what Liverpool and Chelsea did for a season or so and stay out of Europe and build up? And I think that's why he's getting away with some of it. I also think that the club are getting away with some of it at the moment as well, because we looked at January, okay, well, there was nothing really happened. Nobody left. Nobody came in as such. It was very stagnant January, and it was a case of Arteta saying, I'm assessing what I've got, and I will get rid of whoever in the summer, and I'll bring in who I need to bring in. There's talk of who's the guy at Lacasaka or whatever his name is.
That's exactly how you say it.
I told you I'm shit at the name.
What are you, lead judges? I'm lead judges with hair.
Not much. But there's talk of us bringing him in, and a deal is quite close to being done on with him. He wants out of Germany. But I think if Arteta is not backed this summer, there will be merry hell to play at the Emirates. You will have Hoggy, everybody else. They don't
want that.
Hoggy will get masks and gloves out. He will be out. Coronavirus or no coronavirus, he will be protesting.
I mean, if someone pushes his wheelchair to get there, because we all know the man's old, then it's going to be a shit show. And here's how I assess the January transfer window: is that we brought in players for depth for very little money, which makes me believe that the board have plans for this summer, because they didn't just throw it all into January. They probably, as Fergus said, they talked to Arteta and said, what do you need? And it was stopgaps. And he took a player he knew of that he had at City, that he probably had great scouting on. Then he took a Premier League ready player who, he's a little bit injured, but he gives the opportunity to cover Bellerin, and it allows Mainsley to go somewhere else on the pitch. So it's just their depth. And we didn't throw a lot of money at players. And I think this summer, that leads for us to be able to remove some of the shit and then bring in something better.
And
you got to remember.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just we're going to remove some players this summer that's going to free up a lot of wage bill. You know, if Mkhitaryan moves on, El Nini. I mean, that's 300,000 a week. That's 300,000 a week.
Those things have the potential to soften the blow, Matthew, of not getting into the Champions League if that's what ends up happening.
And I would be okay with that. If you said to me right now, you will not be playing in Europe next season, I would be okay with it because, as Fergus said, Liverpool and Chelsea did it, and it was a good opportunity for them to rebuild and then go and make your impact.
As long as like Josh said over the summer, as long as we don't have a non-Europe league with a Champions League budget, and they do something to fix that and make us into a non-Europe budget. As long as the goal is in every single way to bring us back, then I'm fine with that European.
How long would you see us in the wilderness then?
Oh, it can't be more than 1 year.
Oh yeah, it's got to be. You got to do what Chelsea did, not play in it. Allow these players to reset. I mean, what did Chelsea do? They finished what, 10th or 12th? 13th?
Yeah, and that was.
Yeah, and then the next season they won the league.
Yeah. I mean that's a bit extreme, but
it is extreme. But you give these players the time off in between, and like, you know what? Let Sheffield United, let fucking Burnley, let whoever else go and play in this Tin Pot Cup, the Europa League, and allow them to fuck themselves, and just give us time to just rebuild.
Yeah.
And I don't buy into the whole, well, if you don't have Champions League, you're not going to be able to get the players. Fuck that. The players come from money. They come from London.
Wolves are in or in about Europe again and competing in the Europa League. And probably their opponents, they've probably got a better chance to get through to the next round than we have.
Yeah, they've bucked the trend of a mid-table team that struggles in the league because of being in Europe. It looked like that was happening earlier in the season.
But here's the thing, though. Their investment into their team isn't massive, but they have a fucking good coaching staff. And if we had a good coaching staff at the beginning of the season, we would be in the hunt for top 4. If Arteta had taken over in July, this team, knowing what now hindsight, right, because we've seen what he can do, would be a completely better team.
I don't know, because I don't know if the players would have bought in as much, because the focus then would have been on his inexperience, not about how much better he was than what Unai.
That's true. He came in when they were pretty low.
I think I think it should have happened in November rather than at the very end of November. It should have happened, before that international break, not after. And I don't think there's anyone that doesn't agree with that. But I don't know that over the summer it would have really made a lot of sense, even with the way that we finished the season last year. You're always going to get more support for the manager after the manager after the manager, and that's what we have here. Unai Emery, I was hoping it would buck that trend to where the guy that follows the legend, isn't the man. But it seems too strong for that to you just can't take over, with very few exceptions, in worldwide sport, from a legend like Arsene Wenger and become a legend yourself. The next person usually has a much better chance at it.
Yeah.
So before we get to some other news, I wanted to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Stephen Feely, is an expat who lives in New Orleans now, who is an amazing talent. He designs T-shirts. He did all of the stuff for Gooner. He's going to do he doesn't know this yet, but he's going to do all the Gooner podcast merch. It's going to be Arsenal-related thongs, condoms, fleshlights. It's going to be 1989
ones, then, yeah.
It's going to be like 1989 themed dental dams and dildos. It's awesome.
If you have a micro-sized vagina, this would be perfect.
Were you the one saying you wanted to clean this podcast up a little bit?
That's never happening.
That ship has sailed.
This is quite therapeutic for me because we don't do this on Guns and Yellow Ribbons. We're professional.
We're highbrow. Hey, is it hard to hear us all the way up in that horse, Fergus? I mean,
I hope we're not doing too much to damage your brand.
No.
One T-shirt design though caught my eye, and you're looking at it right now. If you're watching on YouTube, it's just an '89 themed T-shirt design with Brian Moore's. Is it Brian Moore? Famous, Arsenal comes streaming forward all the way up to it's up for grabs now, and not only caught my eye, but we and others retweeted it out after Gooner, and it caught Amy Lawrence's eye, Kevin Campbell's eye, Lee Dixon, Alan Smith, and they all want one, and so apparently I'm bringing over shirts for all of them when I come over in a few weeks, and it's brilliant.
I'll accept one as my fee as well.
I'm going to be like the Jewish Santa Claus of 1989 gear. But this is the design of the shirt. I wanted to give him a quick plug because he does amazing stuff. Check out his store at www.feestees.me, and I'll put that up in the comments. But if you're just listening, it's FEESTEES.me. He doesn't mess around with this like .com and .co.uk bullshit. He's a .me type of guy. So feestees.me, and I think there's some shipping issues right now where there's some customs or tax issues with the UK. But if you guys order enough of them from him, he doesn't know this yet either, but he's going to pay for me to come over and personally just deliver them like, it's my new career path. So let's get to some other stuff real quick on Manchester City. Happy Valentine's Day, guys. Oh, let me get this off the screen. Little love letter from UEFA with the announcement that they're the recipient of a 2-year Champions League ban and a 30 million euro fine, which is like telling me I have to forfeit £5 and go without buying crunchy and double-decker bars for 2 years, which I don't even want to begin to think about. But 3 questions, and I'll rotate between you guys to there's Steven. Steven's in the chat right now. First of all, Andy, do you think that the appeal to the Court d'Arbitration de Sport will result in a complete overturn, a reduction to 1 year, or completely uphold the ban?
Probably, because with that appeal, they'll probably pay a lot of money to a lot of people to get it overturned. But I think I read somewhere that ultimately, when you acknowledge that you're going to be playing in the Champions League, you acknowledge that UEFA's rules are the rules that you're going to abide by, and you've broken that rule, the rules of UEFA. So UEFA can hand any fucking fine or ban they want, and they don't need to go to a third-party arbitration because they are the ones who set the rules. The question now, Mike, is how does this now affect other teams also doing this? Because Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG, all the big clubs, they're all doing it. It's just
the day after this came out, Barcelona was basically just allowed to break the rules and sign someone that because somebody broke a nail.
Yeah. So for me, I think it does get overturned. Probably not the full. I think it will probably get a year just because they're going to be able to bribe people. But
it'd be too disgusting if the whole thing gets overturned, although they're going for that.
Going to a third party is absolutely ridiculous because you broke the rules of the governing body, so the governing body can do whatever the fuck they want.
No, I think the CAS has jurisdiction, and if the CAS doesn't overturn it, they'll go to Switzerland and go to. I mean, they'll lawyer up the whole thing, and Congress will.
It's already been through appeals and several committees. The first committee that made the ruling on behalf of UEFA was 5 independent judges that made the decision, and then they took it to CAS, which was 7 independent judges. The only thing they can do now is take it to the European Court, High Court, and the European High Court have also distanced themselves from making any rulings over sport and said that they would allow CAS to be the ultimate court within and the ultimate decision maker within sport. And CAS doesn't just have a decision over sport in football. It does blades and running. It does everything. So they can go there, and all they're going to go is go, what they said was right, because otherwise they completely undermine UEFA, completely undermine FIFA, both whatever people think of the organizations. But I cannot see anything happening other than the ban being upheld. And also, I think that CAS will ask for the any appeal to be expedited so from before the end of the season.
Well, and it's got to be because, I mean, 5th place suddenly becomes a massive opportunity for a.
It doesn't necessarily be 5th place. The FA could decide, you know what, for the next 2 seasons, we're going to give it to the FA Cup winners.
Yeah, and here's the thing: the Football Ramble made up a good point. The Champions League starts in July.
With the most draws,
but the Champions League starts in July, so this has to be signed and sealed before July.
End of May. Yeah.
It has to be done sooner than later.
Assuming they do give it to 5th place, though. I mean, think of the small clubs who really could use that Champions League money. I mean, like your Sheffield Uniteds, your Wolveses, and like small clubs like Arsenal could like really use that money from finishing 5th.
We just now need 2 other teams to get fined by UEFA, so it's just a lock-in that we can just finish in 10th comfortably and get that Champions League.
Financial fair play, and so do you? I mean, the other thing is when UEFA acts, the FA almost kind of has to act with regard to the Premier League specifically, not the FA.
The thing is, Mike, the Premier League act as investigators on behalf of UEFA. UEFA don't have all the people to do the investigation into Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Tottenham, all these teams, if there's any complaints made about them. And the information that UEFA have got has been supplied by Premier League officials. So the Premier League are now aware of the improprieties that Man City may or may not have done, but are proven to be done. So do they need to take action and then dock them points? If they dock them points and they drop out of the top 4 and they don't win the Champions League, well then 5th doesn't even matter anymore.
Right.
Yeah, but if they send them to League 2,
it will be there.
Pep has come out and said, and you know, we plan to talk about it. Matthew, you've obviously brought that up. This is a 10-minute conversation, and we don't have 10 minutes for this conversation, unfortunately, right now. But you know, Pep has come out and said, I'll stay with the team even if we do get relegated to League 2. That's bullshit.
I think players will stay there because they're getting paid enough money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The only way that players leave is if they have a clause in their contract that says if we don't make Champions League football, I get to bounce. I don't think that actually exists. I know there's a relegation clause where some players will say if we get relegated, I get to leave.
And sponsors, there are clauses where their fees go down if there's not the Champions League.
Yeah, it's same with us with the Adidas money.
That's a drop in the bucket for them, though.
We get a bonus from Adidas if we get into Europe. We get another bonus if we get in Champions League, and as various stages we go.
And so not doing that with the previous short-term cost control has hurt our ability to sign players because of decreased commercial revenue. But for Manchester City, you know, who knows? We gotta start to wrap up with some user questions. First from Danny, the GFP, and this covers an area that you wanted to talk about anyway. From the Bergkamp Wonderland, do you believe all the reports that Matteo is too big for his boots and has been dropped? I absolutely believe that. As long as as long as we're assuming that you know, the transgressions include just kind of goofing off, acting a little bit too cocky and assured for his age and his stature, and Arteta knocked him down a peg. I mean, what you love about Guendouzi is often what you could really find fault with him for, which is that, you know, he keeps it light. He's fun. He acts like one of the boys, but he's 20. And sometimes I think he probably forgets that. And he's in a very unique position on this team right now. He came in young, not expected to play, second division from France, and he worked his ass off right away to show that he belonged in the squad and also in the kind of whatever social construct there is in the team. But here's what's different this year than last year. Ed Nketiah, 20 years old. Joe Willock, 20 years old. Reece Nelson, 20 years old. Martinelli, 18 years old. Saka, 18 years old. These guys have all made the team. They're all around the boys all the time. They're in the dressing room. And if they see Guendouzi acting like a schmuck and a guy who takes his spot on and off the pitch for granted and acts like he's a made man, those younger kids whose youth and inexperience are what's refreshing about them are going to get the wrong message. And so I think you know, as much as I love Guendouzi and I even backed him for captain, I was wrong. I just loved his energy and enthusiasm. He's got to take himself a little bit more seriously so that those younger players don't get his influence and take it the wrong way. Anyone?
I would just like to point out that Bulgarian Gooner has won the internet today by quoting the other guys. Here's the thing, Mike. Until we hear from Arteta, it's all rumors. The kid has not done anything in his time at Arsenal that has led us to believe that he's this prima donna who deserves to do whatever he's doing. So at the end of the day, I think that we just got to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I know that you look to make these big things happen, you know, but maybe he has a niggling injury. Maybe he's just not playing well in training. There's been nothing so far to suggest that he is.
Make a comment about behavior?
Who?
Didn't Arteta make a comment post game about?
Yeah,
And not behavior. And this was, I was listening in on Same Old Arsenal yesterday, and I think, so I don't mean to lift this from them, but not behavior in the sense of like he was acting like a child, but behavior as in just professionalism and.
Can you stop for just a second? I just want to say this: if you're going to plagiarize, don't apologize for it, because those two assholes over at Same Old, okay, they deserve to be plagiarized. All right, I'm looking at Scott and I'm looking at Lee. I want you to word for word say what they said, and I do. No, Scotty boy, and I want to make sure that you don't credit those two assholes, especially the judges who last night I saw the Avs game and did not say hello to me.
Fergus, did you just distance yourself from that comment?
No, I just said good recovery. When he gets the name wrong, goes, I'm talking about Scott. And then he goes along, it's Craig. Scotty boy.
Scotty boy.
Not the first person to make that error. Okay, well.
On the Guendouzi, just
brilliant podcast, by the way.
My 2 pence on Guendouzi is I think he's potentially going to be a great guy, and I think potentially he could be captain material at someday. I think he's been chucked in probably way above his head sometimes. I did love him at Burnley, just giving it all that to the Burnley away fans right beside us. And when they were giving David Luiz tons of shit, he was up there and he had Luiz's back. And after the game, he's gone, fucking rugby team, and all like this when he's walking off the pitch. But that might be what Arteta is talking about. He might be talking about, look, hang on a second. You're bringing yourself into disrepute. Hold yourself, hold your stature. Don't give people a reason to have a go at you.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it's what we all love about him. On absolutely no restrictor at all, and it needs to be managed to where it starts to show itself at the appropriate time.
Could you imagine? Was Wenger in charge when? Yeah, no, Wenger wasn't in charge when we beat Tottenham, and he hung out the window of the car coming out of the stadium. Wenger or George Graham would have tore him a new one.
Yeah, Graham would have. I mean. Yeah, no, that's true, and you just need to modify it a little bit. You can't be all one thing or another especially when you are no longer the young kid on the block. You're now an example to 5 kids on the team that are younger than you are.
Yeah, you got to channel that aggression, channel that passion, and do it in the right way.
Now that sounds like a father right there. How many kids you got?
Who, me?
Yeah, I know how many kids Andy got, and he doesn't sound like a father.
2 and 3 grandkids.
3 grandkids?
Yeah.
That's a load of shit.
Hey, yeah. with the way Jake's banging them in, Mike, you're gonna have grandkids soon as well.
12, man, because you're no more than 38 years old. That's for sure. All right, so we had a pack show today. We're going to talk about the supporters liaison meeting, Fergus. But all I'll say about that is I kind of wish Josh had been there. But given that there were a lot of interesting things that you can read on a number of different Twitter accounts, Red Action, some others, good things being discussed, not necessarily being resolved. But anyway, possible Cazorla testimonial match. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
I'm going to be attending a meeting with Chris Foy at Arsenal in the boardroom. What's that?
Is that the VAR meeting?
Yeah. That's going to be interesting.
When is that?
5th of March.
Oh, that's the day I get there. I can't sneak in your suit. Well, when we see each other on the 7th, I want to hear all about that.
You'll be pissed on the 5th.
Yeah, that's true. I'll be pissed. Fergus tells me before the podcast, he's like, "You don't remember meeting me 18 months ago, do you?" And I'm like, I mean, I've known you for a while, like virtually, but we met in person. He's like, "Oh yeah, you would never." Just put it this way: it was after the Pins, after Kevin Campbell visit. So, Fergus, I apologize.
And before the game.
Before the game.
Yeah.
Oh, it was before the game. Okay, well, that's a different story. I just, you must not have rated it for me.
You had a whole weekend of it.
Yeah,
I can't remember what game it was, but as I said, there was other Arsenal American fans there. There was LA, and there's quite a few.
We'll do another podcast in a month after my next visit, and you'll be like, "You don't remember seeing me, do you?" All right. So from Mark, all right, here's the soccer questions. Do we have 5 more minutes, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay. From Mark Mertz up in the Green Bay Arsenal Supporters Club. What to do with Tierney when healthy? I'm just going to read a bunch of these. And
Hang on. I want Walker Texas Gooner comment up there.
Oh yeah.
Which ones? Oh, okay, yeah.
Honestly,
no, take it down.
I would have never ever. Yeah. Oh, the one before that, you mean?
At Guns and Ribbons.
Yeah, we're certainly gonna do that before we get off. But you're clearly rating with our supporters, our users here.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So here's the Saka raft of questions. What to do when Tierney's healthy? Keep Saka at left back. Play Tierney and play Saka at some other position. If so, where? That's from Mark. From Fredo, Bukayo Saka, future left back, left winger, or left midfielder. There's only one answer to that, and that's future Ballon d'Or winner. The aforementioned Stephen Feely at Nola Gooner on Twitter from Fees Tees. Eventually, Tierney and Kolasinac will be fit, so Saka will not be needed at left back. Does he simply move up to the wing spot ahead of Abba or Martinelli? Does Abba move back to the middle and Saka and Martinelli fight it out for the spot, or does one of them push Pepe for his spot on the right? From Christian in Chicago, with Saka looking like he's close to signing a long-term deal at Arsenal, what weekly wage are you walking away from negotiations if you're Arsenal? 100, 150, 200.
Jesus.
35.
Relax.
He's kidding with those. And those are the Saka questions. So Fergus,
I saw them coming through on Twitter, and I was so tempted to answer some of them on Twitter, and I thought
I guess sometimes you don't get the podcast situation. They do that, and I'm like, no, you're supposed to like it, and then we answer it on the podcast. I would know the deal though. Yeah.
What do we do if Tierney comes back? And let's talk about Leicester and stuff, which I think is all.
Don't sell.
I think that's just talk to try and get him a bigger contract. When he comes back and when he plays, he'll play at left back. Saka has already said he doesn't want to be a left back. He wants to be a winger. That's his natural position. So we push him into a winger, the left wing position. We are going to lose one off Aubameyang or Lacazette in the summer because neither one of them has signed an extended contract. I expect it may well be Aubameyang.
How nice will it be to not have to just have the rush to spend a lot of money to replace somebody sometime?
Exactly, because we just
somebody from within.
We just push him up there. But Martinelli on the other side, you can rotate between Pepe, Martinelli, Saka. You've got continuous rotation of players that you can do. So I think it's fine. What anybody else thinks, go on.
You guys are forgetting to mention one individual that Arteta has said on numerous occasions he is the future of Arsenal Football Club, and that's Reece Nelson, who can play in both those positions. So what I'm hearing is excitement in the fact that we have depth, which for a long time we haven't had before. With Fergus, Aubameyang is probably likely on the way out. I think we're going to be in an Ozil Sanchez situation where we're going to only keep one of them and tie one to a big contract. Lacazette still has the age in his feet, so I expect that to be it.
And Ozil's going to need a pay rise.
But if I'm Lacazette, I'm looking at Eddie, and I'm a little bit nervous because I think he's doing enough in training to impress the coaches. But we're sitting on a fucking gold mine in Martinelli. And everything that this kid has done to this point has been impressive, has been just absolutely amazing. And I cannot wait to see what he can do in the future. We got to give him time. But I think he can rotate into 4 or 5 different positions. I think Saka, as he said, is best in the left wing. And I'm excited to see him there because when he played there at the beginning of the season, there were flashes of just brilliance where you're just like, what is this kid doing? And I hate to even make the comparison, but there are certain players around the world who are world class where you see Saka and you think, oh shit, he can do that. And then
he's only 18, Andy.
He's only 18. And you make a couple mistakes and you go, he needs time. So for me, I don't care where he plays. We just need to have him on the pitch. Tierney is one of the best left backs in European football. There's no question about it. When he's fully fit and healthy, he slots right in, and we allow that. But we've got a lot of youth. Saliba coming in, Holding's getting time. We're going to have a great team all over the place, and we're going to have a lot of issues with how do we fit everyone in, and that's a fucking great problem to have because we have to have that for 10 years.
Did you see the article, very briefly on the same sort of thing, did you see the article about the guy who's taken over as the head of the youth coach along with per MUTHAF, and he talked about the setup, and it goes on to Saka and Nelson and so on. But he talks on about the setup and says that we were a club that was in disarray in the academy, and had a club full of creative, fancy playing midfielders, but no wingers. Saka, we've got a winger. Nelson can play. You know, we've got.
Smith Rowe can play there.
Yeah.
And apparently this Balogun guy is coming through and is absolutely amazing for his age. So I mean, it's an interesting time because
future's bright. The future's red and white.
I'm sorry.
The future's bright. The future's red and white.
It certainly should be.
Just expect Theo Walcott to get re-signed in July.
Oh yeah, we'll bring him in for old time's sake, just so you can tell him to fuck off again, Andy.
Don't be a bitch.
2 more questions from Tommy Sevens in Richmond, who has disappointed me beyond belief by not coming with me to London next month. I really know how to go to London without that guy. Asks us about his favorite player of all time, Mainsley, who has not been in the squad for 2 games. Has he not worked hard enough in training, like a lack of effort? Or is it more strategic now that he's the 3rd choice behind Hector? And he says Mustafi. And then Stephen Feely points out Cedric was brought in to be Bellerin's backup.
But he's not a right back.
Who?
Mainly not.
No. But it has certainly been the only spot that he can find his way into the 18.
That's his problem. He hasn't found a place in the team. He hasn't fought for a position strong enough in the team. And the only place there was space from him was where Bellerin was out. And if Bellerin's back in and Bellerin keeps his place, he's screwed.
You got to
question though.
He puts in a shift. I mean, he never really wanted about it like fucking Oxlade-Chamberlain either. But I just don't know that.
But here's a question though, to Fergus's point: if we are that limited at right back for 18 months plus, has he had the opportunity to show in training that he could play somewhere else? Because he has been trained to be a right back, right? So it's not like we've had these other players who can play in that position and cover so he can jump into a defensive midfielder or center midfielder position. The coaches have said to him, hey, we need you here because this is where you're going to play in the match. So I just wonder if he needs some.
We've bought cover for Bellerin.
Right. And that says everything you need to know.
So we just need to I would say then Mainsley needs a little bit of time to reestablish himself in training with the coaches and then prove like, hey, I can be Lucas's cover as a defensive midfielder.
22?
I think he's probably got a loan spell next season, and then I hate to say it because I love the kid, but I think I just think that the way that we set up, unless like Bellerin makes a shock move to Barcelona or something like that, if we don't lose the depth or have a season-ending injury in one of those positions, there's just no place in the club for him, despite that he's given everything he's got since he was 5 years old for the team. It's just not going to happen.
And his head's dropped many a time in the game. Like he's had some great games, and then he's had some really bang average games as well.
Tom, if you came to London with me, we could go to his house, and although we'd have to watch out for his mom, but
I could scream at him, "Good luck making the team."
Yeah, well, he needs luck making the team at this point. He's the one I should have been saying that to, not Willock.
My local landlord's son plays FIFA and stuff like that around his house, not far from me.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's do it. Final, and I think it's a good place to finish off, which I said when I was staying at Andy's house. From Walker, Texas Gooner. Am I completely daft for being excited for this win? I know we're mid-table, and I know it was only Newcastle, but that performance, I'm assuming he refers to the second half specifically, was great. It's baby steps right now. We aren't going to win the league, but it feels good to win like that. Do Arsenal fans always have to be miserable?
Yes.
Lee judges, yeah.
No, the answer to that question is
judges.
The Enfield boys. I'm by the way, I'm making a trip to Enfield just to see what it's like this time. I all keep hearing about Enfield, and I've been to Cricklewood, but never to Enfield before. Do all fans need to be miserable? Should just enjoy this? The answer, Walker, is yes. That's exactly. I told Andy I was so happy to pod today, and I haven't felt like this enthusiastic about doing it because we had just a stellar guest coming on. B, we've won a game. C, it's just there's a momentum going on, and I can't say that some of our absences in the last couple months haven't been partially because of how shit things have been and how hard it is to talk about. But I'm feeling good. I feel great. And Fergus, this is the time where we let you talk about the podcast. When do you pod? Why do you pod? I mean, why
do I do it? God knows. Honestly, I do it for a hobby. I enjoy it. I enjoy having fun, talking with fellow fans like you guys today. We podcast generally on a Wednesday night. So tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. On YouTube and Facebook, we're Guns and Yellow Ribbons. On Twitter, we're at Guns and Ribbons because the yellow wasn't available. And yeah, so I just enjoyed it a lot. Look, for me, I enjoy going watching the football, and when the football's crap, I really don't care because I enjoy the whole social aspect, be it the WhatsApp group with Andy's weather forecasts in the morning, be it talking to you guys on here, be it down the pins, down the Wenger Inn, be it down whatever pub, and just meeting up with the lads. And I've met so many good people all through the mighty Arsenal, and that's why I do it. And I got the reason our podcast started was I was chatting to a US guy, Boston Gooner, in
hopefully Boston.
What's that?
Hopefully Boston.
Yeah, he is in Boston. Yeah. So Mike Galvez, he messaged me and said, do you fancy doing something? And I was messing about doing some very drunken YouTube bits a few years back outside the George and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, well, I'm trying to do something. I don't know what to do, just for a bit of a laugh. And we started doing audio like you guys. And now we're onto YouTube on the same platform that you're using. So if you fancy another podcast, you can get us on Spotify, Acast, Apple, iTunes, and YouTube. Thank you very much, Mike and Andy, for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. I think someone said earlier on the chemistry was ripe from the start, and I have to agree with that. We've enjoyed it a lot. We will do it again. If you'll have us on yours, you won't get Andy on, but I'll definitely go on. I mean, if you get Andy on, you've done something right.
Well, and Mike, I think we need to quickly address.
Me and Andy have already organized it.
Yeah. Actually, Mike, then now's a better time than any to. We're actually gonna kick you off, and it's gonna be Guns and Yellow Ribbons, the Gooners podcast.
Yes. When I said Andy, how about we have Fergus on tomorrow? He kind of smiled and laughed as though his plan had finally come to fruition.
Yes, he's creating his own grave.
Exactly. I'm writing it. Take it out.
If people are still with us, a lot of people keep asking about where B is. B is still around. He's buzzing, but schedules have been nuts. Dude's still part of the pod. He's still doing everything with us. He's had some crazy stuff happen. We've had stuff. Our schedules have not aligned. He's been trying to get into graduate school or he's a very busy kid. So we're all being respectful of each other's time, but B is still very much with us. We wanted to have him today. I just don't think he could make it work. So
yep. So anyway, if you are listening to us, please again give us a try on YouTube. It's just a different flavor. You can cover your eyes if you want, so you don't have to see our faces. But then just kind of watch like this a little bit. And you can subscribe. Go to goonersubscribe.com or click on the icon that should be appearing right around now if you're watching us on a replay. And that's about it, Fergus. I'll see you in a few weeks, and I'll remember it this time, and then I'll forget about it.
And the beers are on you.
Beers are on me, and we'll be at the pins in the Wenger Inn probably before and after every game. So,
which game are you over for? You're over for the Olympiacos game, isn't it?
I'm over from West Ham all the way through what hopefully will be a FA Cup quarterfinal, but if not, it'll be an away Southampton game.
Okay, I'll see you at West Ham. Olympiacos, I'm away at work, so I can't.
I'm not there for Olympiacos. I'm there for the next round, so we'll hook up for sure.
Okay. Take it easy. Andy, good seeing you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Come on, you Gooners.